Welcome to Down to Business with V, a show dedicated to bringing you actionable information to help protect you, your families, your businesses, and the community. I'm your host V, and today we're bringing you the dark potentials of AI. We've called in a director and co-founder of a creative consulting firm to share use cases and discuss the dangers and potential negative impacts AI can bring to your business and communities. And as always, we'll share what to do if you're a victim of fraud. Stay tuned for that and more. Let's get down to business. From Atlanta, Georgia, to becoming a United States Marine, to Washington, D.C., and every place in between, everybody calls me V. My goal is to bring you resources, education, and knowledge from sources you can trust that informs and protects to safeguard our families, our businesses, and the community. Now let's get down to business. Welcome to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we're discussing the dark potentials of AI. We have in the studio with us via Zoom, Souki Mehdaoui, director and co-founder of Bell & Whistle. Souki Mehdaoui is a commercial director and technology consultant based in LA, helping professionals integrate AI into their everyday lives and transform their work through generative thinking. Souki has worked with companies like Google and Sony on programs ranging from media strategy and curriculum design to trauma-informed documentary subject frameworks. Her award-winning work debuted at Sundance 3 years in a row and can be seen on Netflix, HBO, Showtime, The New York Times, TED, and many more. Here's my interview with Souki. Souki, welcome.
Hi, so good to see you again.
Thank you. Great to see you again as well from Mauritius. Thank you so much for Zoom calling in just days before your wedding.
It's a thrill. Honestly, I wouldn't want to spend it any other way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Souki, thank you for being back with us. Give us a little bit of background for those that might not have seen you on other episodes of, how you ended up in film, what you're doing in consulting, and how AI is playing a part.
Great. I'm a commercial director and a consultant for teams who want to integrate new technology like AI into their workflows. I work with industry leaders to embrace new tools, elevate their tech literacy, and harness the power of AI while keeping the best of their humanity in the process so they can push their brands and projects to the next level while maintaining strong ethics. I guess you could consider me a friendly neighborhood tech Sherpa. And I came to this in a very circuitous way, but I guess in a short summation, I would say I came to film through nonfiction, and it was a passion, and then kind of meandered my way from cinematography into directing, and then found AI very happenstance when it launched with these text-to-image generators, and I embraced it and haven't looked back since.
Awesome. Souki, we read your bio for our audience at the top of the show. You've done some amazing things and been featured in amazing places, so congrats and kudos on that. Tell us about your work with Sony and Google.
So I worked with both Sony and Google through my involvement with this amazing nonprofit that is so dear to my heart called the Video Consortium. It's a network of thousands of documentary filmmakers and nonfiction journalists. And it started in New York, but then it moved to LA, and now there are hubs all over the world, Paris, London, you name it, and all across the States. With basically documentary folks who make a living off of nonfiction filmmaking, nonfiction storytelling, and video journalism. And the founder, Sky Dillon Robbins, was able to get funding from both Sony and Google for these social education programs for nonfiction filmmakers. And so she worked really hard to sort of create a relationship with both of them that then I and another group of filmmakers could come in, step into, and design a very, very robust mentorship program with Sony, where we took a group of up and coming nonfiction filmmakers and paired them with mentors. And over the course of 9 months, they were able to get hands-on sort of educational support with people that were actually working in the field. And it was really beautiful to watch them take a project from start to finish. And Sony ended up sending cameras to them. And it was really beautiful to work with the company and see all of the ways in which technology can help so drastically change a filmmaker's life. And so that was really beautiful. And then with Google, we worked with them on a trauma conference, which was a week-long digital conference to start to break apart some of the challenges and the issues and shine a light on some of the challenges that nonfiction filmmakers experience in the field, working, telling stories of people's pain, going from sort of a one tragedy to another, talking about these really horrendous things that happen all around the world. But there are people who are holding the cameras that are, feeding people the news and really allowing for a safe space for those filmmakers to come and be able to talk about it. And so we put together a week-long conference that went so beautifully. We had a therapist and her master's students that were there holding space and basically creating an opportunity for filmmakers to have access to real psychological support while also talking about some really tough issues.
Yeah, that's amazing, Suki. Amazing work that you've done with both Sony and Google. But I love that human aspect, and bringing in, mental health care for people in that space, in that condition. So kudos again on that. You're doing amazing things. So,
Thanks. Well, again, and I will say, oh, sorry, I interrupted. Sorry. I will say that in many ways, I think this intersection between film and sort of social education and technology is a space that is so rich and open, and there's so much opportunity. And it's one of the things that I have been so inspired by people like Sky, who run Video Consortium, but also some of the initiatives in these different tech companies to extend into the social world, which is why I really see folks at these different AI companies as I would say gateways and doorways into an opportunity to bring technology into the social space, into our lives to help us challenge some of these issues that have been going on for a long time, and they can facilitate a different way of engaging with them.
Absolutely. So you've done some great work using AI in a wonderful light with your work, with your consulting firm, and just some of the things you've used generative AI for. There's a lot of fear surrounding AI. And we talked a little bit about that in a previous episode. And we want to address those concerns for our audience today. So we're going to take a little bit of a shift here and kind of address what they may be thinking today as they're watching. And the title and the topic that we're discussing is the dark potentials of AI. And kind of looking into those. And, we want your expert opinion and perspective on it, as well as your personal opinion and perspective on a lot of these things, because we're all people and we're all in this together, really. So let's talk about jobs. We know that we have people that are concerned about being replaced in this era of AI and its emergence. We've heard experts talk about how it has the potential to create jobs. And then we've heard, of course, the discourse about being replaced. Can you give us some insight and just your perspective on it, and what our viewers can, take away from the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that I actually really love having, because keep in mind you're talking to someone who, I think the last time I had a full-time job was when I was 2021. I've been freelance for actually, no, I think it was when I was 19. So I've been freelance for over a decade. So for me, a job is something that I'm constantly having to earn, right? My career is something that I designed before it existed. And so my understanding of the world of work and labor without AI is one in which I'm having to constantly upskill. I'm having to constantly challenge myself to learn new avenues of selling myself and new possibilities that I could start to lean into in the creative work that I do. So not only as an artist, but as an entrepreneur, my lens is one that is particularly I would say nuanced in that it looks at work not as like a solid thing that you have or you have not, but it is always a state of becoming. And so I think when people say it's going to create jobs or take away jobs, I absolutely think that it is going to make jobs that exist today redundant. In the same way that, like, I shoot on film, I love film, but digital photography and film absolutely put out so many labs out of business. And so if there is a world in which we live in where there can be like no change, yeah, sure, there's a kind of like tit for tat. Um, let me start that over again. One sec. I think that with AI, it is going to change everything. And by that, I mean the change will be total. Like the way that a species is introduced to an environment, it doesn't change just one thing, it changes everything. And so, like, we are in a place right now where we're witnessing this transformation. And it is going to transform not only how we work, but how we communicate with one another, how we understand ourselves, how we understand the nature of work. And so I think that if people are expecting that nothing will change, they'll be sorely disappointed or perhaps heartbroken to find that that just will not be true. And yet, the fact that everything is change and everything is constantly changing is an opportunity. And so, for me, I'm very, very aware of the ways in which I will need to pivot, and everyone around me in this industry will need to pivot to make sure that they are still relevant in a world in which AI can very much do that same job 10 times faster. And some would argue 10 times worse, but that doesn't change the fact that it will make obsolete a lot of the things that we are thinking of as constant and unchanging right now. And so, thank God, these film labs that I used to love when I was younger, some of them are still in business so that we can still shoot on film, right? Thank God that that is still the case. But it doesn't mean that we have six options to pick from now in the same town. We might have one and it's 3 states away. And so I don't think it's going to demolish different industries, but I do think it's going to drastically change the market. And we have an opportunity to see that as something that we are pivoting towards. And we also can look at that as like everything is changing and everything is going to pivot and transform, maybe in a way that I don't like, and that is going to make my job no longer needed. And I will say that in some senses, in some cases, yes, and in other cases, no. And we just need to be patient and see where the cards fall. But this is a really big chance for us to go in with eyes wide open, that we're in a drastically changing ecosystem that is very much in flux.
Absolutely. We are in an era of digital transformation, and change management is top of mind. So, Souki, when we come back, I want you to delve a little bit further into what we're talking about today, the impacts and dark potentials of AI, and addressing some concerns for our audience. We'll be right back. Welcome to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and we have in the studio with us via Zoom Souki Mehdaoui. She is the CEO of Bell and Whistle, the director and co-founder of Bell and Whistle, a consulting firm. And we're talking about AI and the potentials, the dark potentials of AI. Souki's been sharing quite a bit of her expertise and insight, and we're going to carry on that conversation. Souki, I loved what you shared in the first segment, and we want to dive right in. There are some concerns over the implications of AI on bias and diversity, and we know that bias in race and gender predate AI. So Give us your perspective on that, as well as what's happening with AI and how it's impacting it.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough pill to swallow when you already are sort of the checkbox that doesn't make it onto the census list, you know? Like I'm a hybrid French Moroccan American, grew up in Morocco, um, have been in many ways a kind of third culture kid in all of the worlds that I've navigated and work. And so I've been thinking about how to make sure that people like me that might either be that checkbox or not even make it on the list because they're a particular kind of niche within even the United States or in whatever world that they're in that doesn't really make it into the majority of the materials, let's say, that go into training data. I have always been thinking about how can I show up and be a representative of a small group of people that might not be represented in any other way. And so with AI, something that is so important to keep in mind is that these training data sets are these large language models, let's say, are trained on a lot of data that doesn't include certain groups of people. And so, one of the things that I've had amazing conversations through the documentary I started working on with the New Yorker, but we didn't end up finishing, was about how can we start to think about training these data sets with the knowledge of different kinds of people that exist and perspectives of different people that exist. So, someone who's doing a lot of work on this is Michael Runningwolf. Um, he is talking about basically training smaller language models that are taking into consideration indigenous native languages. And so, how can you have someone from a particular tribe be able to communicate with a large language model so that his language isn't lost because he's not speaking it with his grandmother because he's on TikTok all the time? But how can you create these virtual environments where an AI can actually take the place of someone who's a tutor of that language so these languages aren't lost? And there's all these other kinds of examples in the world of trying to think about AI as not just something that will continue to perpetuate bias, which it does. And we have seen so many different examples of that, from policing to now seeing how ChatGPT, what do they call it? Like sort of the bots that try to find ChatGPT AI writing, they're biased against folks that are second language, sort of English as a second language. And so talk about the challenges that someone who is speaking English as a second language and applying to jobs, and someone uses an AI sort of AI tracker to see if someone has written their essay in or their reference letter with AI and sees that, oh, unfortunately, this one has written it with AI when in fact it was someone who was just not practiced at English. Like it just, there's so many implications for a lack of consideration for people that are not the majority. And so I think it's so important when we're thinking about AI to think about all of the different groups of people that are not represented, both in the models, but also who might be being might be unfairly disadvantaged in using these different models because it's just not tracking the right metrics. And so I personally think it's one of the most important places that we need to be focusing our energy on because there's real human implications. And so I know that there's a lot of people working in the field, and I think it's one of the most beautiful things to hear people speaking at conferences about how much they are taking into consideration as they create new training models for AI, really going to diverse communities and trying to make it a priority to talk to people that are not part of the dominant narrative and bring those weights and those models to the forefront. And talking to people who are programming with folks that are like indigenous folks who are actually creating code that represents their culture rather than something that is never considered them. So there's a lot of really amazing work being done and also a very long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Harvard Business Review did an article on it, and it was quite insightful, what was shared there. And again, it predates AI, but it's definitely being exacerbated by it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as we're weighing the impacts and implications of AI, let's talk a little bit about privacy, security, and democracy, and how that is being impacted. I've written a few articles myself in recent weeks and examined, researched, and looked at material of how this is affecting, a number of things in that landscape. So let's hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I think it's going to make everything a lot harder. So, I think a part of being involved in any of these sort of worlds, privacy, security, democracy, these are entire universes of conversation. I had the privilege of working on a film that tackled some of these questions with social media algorithms, called The Great Hack. And I was a cinematographer on that project along with a number of other amazing shooters. And one of the things that really came to light for me was the ways in which any technology can be exploited to help someone gain an upper hand in an unfair way. And we always need to be so vigilant about abuses of power, and especially the use of technology to abuse power. I think, I mean, we've been used to propaganda for many, many centuries. And so the combination of, image generators, text generators, video generators, on top of the security sort of risks posed in all of these ways with AI. They talk about brainwashing outside of even social media. These tools really give a lot of power to someone who wants to manipulate another human being or a large group of human beings. And so we're already starting to see political ads and AI used in political ads. We're already starting to see misinformation and disinformation campaigns that are happening right now. I mean, we make fun of this post that went viral of the Pope in drip, but you think about all of these different images that are, Trump doing this and Trump doing that, and these pictures of Biden like DJing in some underground studio, and they're hilarious now until there are posts of something that's happening that isn't real. And here we have this ballooning of conspiracy theories where the whole notion of truth is questioned. And so for me, something that is so vital to keep in mind is that a technology once made public will be exploited, in some ways for humor, and in other ways for real harm, and in other ways just for personal gain. And so I want to do everything that I can to make people aware of the dangers that do exist and to empower them to learn about them so that they also can keep themselves and their loved ones safe and be aware of the media they consume, that it might not actually be what they think it is, but not to question reality, not to question truth, but recognize these things are possible. And we just need to keep verifying and be even more vigilant to check our sources.
The reason this show exists is to show this is possible. And Souki, in the last 2 minutes that we have on this episode, can you give some insight to how our viewers can navigate the negative impacts while they maximize the positive impacts of AI?
There's so many things. But first and foremost, I would say give yourself permission to explore and to play. And in many ways, that permission will allow you to walk through a doorway that leads to your understanding of what artificial intelligence is. Like, it is in many ways more complicated and more simple than you could ever imagine. And so it's really, really hard to know where you're going or know where you want to go if you don't have a map of the territory. And so, what I would really strongly suggest from the bottom of my heart is to let yourself lean into playing with, exploring, experimenting, testing out, trying out as many different kinds of tools as you can. Text generators, image generators, video generators, for you to see what's possible and to not allow the emotional response to change be the guide of what you actually do, of your actions. One of the things that I personally have gone through is a roller coaster of emotions every single time a new tool gets announced. This doesn't change. Every single time a new update to GPT happens, every time there's a new video tool that comes out, I have a bit of a drop in the pit of my stomach and like, whoa, things are moving really fast. There's an anxiety that comes in, a kind of grief at the loss of all of the things that will change. And there's a feeling of sadness of, oh my God, like, will I be replaced? There's all of these emotions that are present. And the most special thing is to be able to feel them all and allow yourself the freedom to just try, to explore, and to see for yourself and understand for yourself what these tools have to offer and what damage they can cause so that you're aware of the world that we're stepping into.
Absolutely, Souki. All of the feelings that you're expressing, our viewers have probably felt as well. Souki Mehdaoui, thank you so much for being with us. We certainly do appreciate you and all that you do. Kudos to you for all the great work you've done in your career, and we're looking forward to more.
Thank you so much.
If you or someone you know has been a victim of a data breach, account compromise, deep fakes, or digital impersonation fraud, be sure to contact your local police department or the FBI at ic3.gov. Also, be sure to visit our sponsor, Vicker Group LLC, business consultants for Generation U at vickergroup.com for cybersecurity awareness training and other resources to help protect you, your families, your businesses, and the community. Also, be sure to check out my column, Info Sector, with V Venezulia on Newsmax to get more info on AI's impact on business, government, politics, civil society, and more. If you'd like to sponsor the show, be a guest on the show, or have show ideas, feel free to contact us at dtbwithv.com. I'd like to thank the crew, Doug, Suzanne, Zach, Jen, Stephen, and David. Thank you for all you do every day. We couldn't make the show without you. I'm your host, V. This is Down to Business with V, and we'll see you next time.